Here we go, Draft Nicks. Here we go. Welcome to another edition of Draft Nation. My name is Brian Anthony Davis, but here with Joe 412, and Joe has all the scoop on everybody coming out for the NFL draft as we do at www.draftnation.com. So make sure you check it out today and receive a free membership. Don't forget to sign up. Joe, what's going on? You feeling the draft?
I have been feeling the draft since September. A lot of my colleagues are more concerned about what's going on during the season, but for me, this is our time. Our season starts right now at the end of the NCAA stretch of games with playoffs bearing down on us, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of these guys live and in person before we get to some of the Senior Bowls.
Yeah, and we are going to get a chance to check them out. And remember, listen to these shows, because when you're watching bowl games, you might find a player that you're not familiar with that you could really key on. So you are on top of it when we come to the draft in Pittsburgh coming up in 2026. Joe, let's go ahead and look at a position that when I was growing up was probably one of the more important positions on the field on offense. And now when it comes to drafting, there's a little bit of a disconnect between some teams and running backs.
Yeah, I think that's happened over the last 5 or 6 years as the league writ large has devalued the position. And that's not that they're not looking for stud running backs. It's just the fact as draft capital, as assets that they're purchasing, they realize that the majority of these guys lose the tread off their tires by the middle of their second contract. And so when you're investing a first round or even some of these higher picks, which would have, like you said, would have happened, 10 years ago, now they're rarities. And you find one, maybe two, running backs go in the first round of every year. That doesn't mean that the players aren't good. And I'll talk about that when we get to our number one guy here in a second. But ultimately we saw that last year with Ashton Jeanty. He went to the Vegas Raiders and was all world everything coming out of Boise State. Hasn't had such a great year, but neither have the Raiders. But ultimately, if you rewind the clock just a year before that, you've got Jahmyr Gibbs, and the Lions took him, I think, 12th or 13th overall, when people were expecting him to go at the top of the second round. And would you say they made a mistake by picking him there? He might be the best player, not only at his position, but he might be the best player in the NFL.
Well, Joe, I absolutely agree with that. So let's go ahead and get on with this. We're going to talk about another Heisman finalist first. And I absolutely love this guy out of South Bend.
I see what you did there. And Jeremiah Love is ultimately my second most favorite player in this draft. If there is a Jahmyr Gibbs in this class, it's him. This guy has size, but more importantly, he has speed to spare. I mean, when this guy gets a crease, he's gone. And if your team wants to take a player that is reminiscent of Jahmyr Gibbs, I remember a couple of years ago, I was doing a draft show the first night of the NFL draft. I was on our stage, and I told everybody about Jahmyr Gibbs, and I was hoping that the Steelers, my hometown team, would end up taking him late in the first round. Well, he didn't even get through the top 15 picks. He literally slid, and folks were kind of not heckling me, but I think if I went back and rewound the clock, I could waggle a finger in their face and say, I told you so. And that's where Jeremiah Love is. I mean, this guy can catch out of the backfield. This guy is, you can use him as a receiver. In some instances, I think we'll see a little bit of that wherever he lands. But ultimately, he's the best back, bar none, in this class. And I think we see him be the first back taken off the board next year.
Who's the hungriest running back team right now picking in 2026, do you think?
Oh, geez. Well, that's a hard one. Because if you go through the list of the folks that are on top, I'm going to have to say Cleveland, right? Cleveland, they've just left, they left the door open for Nick Chubb last year, and he left, and they've got a couple of middling guys that just really haven't really done anything. I think that would be a sexy pick for them. I don't know if they would do that number 4 overall or wherever they land, but ultimately if they move around, I think Cleveland would be there. If you look at the rest of them, Tennessee, sure, but are you going to risk that pick first overall? I don't think so. The Raiders just took Jeanty. The Giants, by way of Cam Skattebo, if he comes back healthy, they've got Tyrone Tracy and Skattebo. I think that those guys, they'll pass on Love too. I think the first team that might want to take a shot at him would be someone like Cleveland.
And Cleveland has 2 number 1 picks, but I don't think they bargained for Jacksonville to be this good, and they thought they were going to have 2 top 10 picks, I would think.
Yeah, and that's the risk of doing those things. We saw that a couple of years ago with Carolina when they traded a boatload to move up and get Bryce Young, who they thought was going to be their franchise quarterback. Has turned out to be, I wouldn't say a bust, but he's underwhelming and he's developing. Let's just put it that way. He's developing, but that ended up being a treasure trove for the Chicago Bears. And same thing opposite of the Bears a few years ago when they traded for Claypool for the Steelers. They reached out and traded their second round, turned out to be the first pick in the second round, turned into a Joey Porter Jr. for the Steelers. So, those are the risks you take. You never know where they're going to land, and Jacksonville may end up winning that division and drafting somewhere in the mid-20s.
Let's go ahead and go to the Pacific Northwest. It is Jonah Coleman, who is listed as number 2.
Yeah, so Coleman's an interesting play, and I would say 2 through 4 here are going to sound eerily similar as I go through them. They each have a different type of skill set, but since you mentioned Jacksonville, I'm going to compare Jonah Coleman to a former Jacksonville Jaguar and Maurice Jones-Drew. This guy is what in the scouting business is called a leveler, or someone that's going to run over you. He's got a compact frame. He's very strong. Bowling ball, probably he's a little bit taller than Maurice Jones-Drew was, but running backs of that size, he's going to be able to. He's a in between the tackles guy with great vision, and that makes a difference. And what I mean by vision is that you see the plays happening before they get there. You're going to see a hole open up. You're going to have the patience to let that hole open up and then hit it. And he's got the speed, and once he gets in there, he's got the power to get into the second level, and no defensive back is going to want to tackle him. And this guy's going to be a big challenge with his low center of gravity for a lot of those linebackers, especially on the smaller side. And I expect to see Coleman and some of these other guys start to come off the board in round 2.
That's very interesting because I'm not as familiar with Coleman as I am the next 2 guys. Growing up a Penn State fan, Nick Singleton, Kaytron Allen. Let's do them both at the same time here, Joe.
Yeah, so Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen both could have come out last year. Both decided to stay at Penn State and play for a national title. And as we all know, best laid plans, right, didn't happen. Coaching changed middle of the season. They lost some early games they shouldn't have lost. But both of these guys are lightning and thunder. They are what you have in what I would describe Montgomery and Gibbs in Detroit right now. Nick Singleton is the fast guy. He's the guy that you want to get out in space. He's the guy that will be able to catch something and make yardage afterwards. He's the guy that has the speed, but he also has good vision. He's a guy that can play within the tackles if you need him to be, and he can be a 3-down back for you. He just has been used in a way at Penn State where it suggests that he's going to be someone that you could do multiple packages with. You could put him in on passing downs like you see Jahmyr Gibbs. You can put him in on running downs and surprise with his speed. Kaytron Allen's the opposite. Kaytron Allen is the bulldozer. This is a guy you want between the tackles. This is a guy that you want at the goal line. He's someone that could be a cowbell 3-down back in the league that's going to be 4 yards in a cloud of dust, 4 yards in a cloud of dust, 10 yards. 4 yards in a cloud of dust, 12 yards. That's what this guy is. You're not going to expect him to break it and go for 50 yards. Maybe once on a season where he does that, where Singleton can make that on any given. He's more sudden, but Allen is going to be dependable and someone that you're going to be able to put between the tackles and wear down the defense, where Singleton comes in and takes advantage of them being fatigued and runs by them, where Kaytron Allen's going to run over them.
This situation, Joe, reminds me of a Big Ten team last season who had a couple second-round backs in Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Would you say that this is a lot like that situation, that both of these guys could go early in round 2?
It's almost exactly that situation. When you got Travion Henderson, the sexiness to him as a player was the fact that he speed. He can get the corner. He could be, he could take snaps at wideout if you need him to. He's going to be able to return the ball. Judkins was, just as fast between the tackles. He has just as many long yardage plays as Henderson did. Both guys were excellent blockers out of the backfield, so you can leave them in on 3 downs, so you can disguise that in your package. And what I mean by that is oftentimes when you switch a player out and bring a player in, you are signaling what you're doing. So if you've got a guy that can't block in pass protection and you slide him out to bring in someone that tells the defense, okay, this is a pass play. Those guys were interchangeable. Both those guys were completely usable in those situations, some of which at the highest points of their class as runners. And so I think that you'll see those guys in the same kind of vein, less like that, more like Gibbs and Montgomery in Detroit. But I see your comparison, and I second the motion.
All right, let's go ahead. And who's out for Justice at number 5? Justice Haynes, Michigan.
Yeah, so Justice Haynes got injured. He was off to a hell of a start. He is a transfer in from Alabama, went into a perfect system for him, which was a run-first system, a power system. This is a guy whose father played in the NFL. He's got, the bloodlines. He's got the pedigree at Alabama, then at Michigan. He was proving himself out. He had plenty of long runs. He had long speed that people didn't expect, but he got injured, and he's been out. And now with the coaching situation up there and the craziness that they're going to face, I'm not sure. And I don't think as of today he's made a decision on whether or not he's coming out or going back in. I think this is a situation where he's still going to come out. I think that teams are going to have to take a look at that injury and see that he's recovered from it. But there's no real downside except for that to this guy. I mean, you're going to get a 3-down back. Sure, you probably won't play on 3rd downs and long, but ultimately I could see them leaving him in there, and he's proven that, if he can get to the 2nd level, he is a danger, and he'll run over people. And I think most folks in this draft might say, the running back class is kind of weak. It's deep. I just think that it's 2nd round and beyond deep. And I think that the only guy that we're going to see off of this list of top 5 that goes in the 1st round is Jeremiah Love.
All right, we've been talking all about Christmas the last month. I cannot wait to unwrap some of these running backs coming up in April. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, look, I mean, the irony of this, and I'm glad we didn't talk about it because I want to mention it now, is that the 2 best backs in this class might be Notre Dame guys. They got Jadarian Price, and I don't know if those at home have been paying attention to him, but this is a guy that's versatile. He's got the right skill set for the NFL. Coordinators are going to love this guy. And he's somebody that, because of Jeremiah Love, didn't get the playing time. But I think that you're going to see that they have comparable speed. Love's faster. But this is a guy that I think that, if he went 2nd back off the board, wouldn't surprise me, but nobody's going to talk about that.
There should be 32 teams doing great homework. Then you're going to find a guy like
Jadarian Price. Yes.
Fantastic. Let's go ahead and make sure that you check us out for all of these shows, so you are ready for the NFL draft come April in Pittsburgh. Don't forget to sign up and receive a free membership to our Draft Nation community at www.draftnation.com. Remember, while Draft Nation may be off the air, we are always on the clock for you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you soon.
Yeah.